All right, guys, welcome to the webinar. Hopefully everyone can hear me just fine. The webinar is going to be a little bit different tonight, different from the other webinars you may have attended. For one, it's going to be a lot shorter than the others, but I really want to give you a more detailed look at the new Inquiry Lab products that launched today. So my name is Chris Kesler, and I started Kesler Science about 5 years ago to help other science teachers become successful in their science classes. I'm a former middle school science teacher myself, and I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade here in Texas. You can find me all over the internet. If you just type in Kesler Science, do a Google search for Kesler Science, you'll be able to find me in different social media channels. But I wanted to specifically call out a fantastic place where all the cool kids hang out, and that is the Facebook group called Kesler Science Professional Learning Network. I've got Josie working on as an admin on the back end here, and she's going to post a link to that Facebook page. But what that is it's a Facebook group, and it's home to nearly 10,000 other middle school science teachers. And the community there is one of the strongest teacher communities I've seen online, and I've seen lots of them. So I encourage you to look that one up and join if that fits your niche. If Facebook's something you do, and you're kind of into collaborating outside the classroom walls, then that is a fantastic spot. I can see you people are starting to ask to join. My phone has just started blowing up with messages. So appreciate that. So at the end of the webinar, I'm going to stick around and answer as many questions as you may have. I'm going to also provide you with some details on how you can get the actual new Inquiry Labs for the cheapest price they're ever going to be. So stay tuned for the end of that, and I'll walk you through all of those goodies there. So let's get right into it. As you know, science teachers have challenges that other subjects don't have. And in fact, here in Texas, the state requires that 40% of the time spent in a classroom in any given week is spent doing hands-on labs. So what are some of the reasons you don't currently do more labs in your classroom? So just click down in that little box down the bottom right there, and you'll see a questions box. And just what are some of the things that are causing you to not do more labs? I'm just kind of curious and see. I mean, I've got some ideas on what you guys are going to come up with. 6 preps. That's a big one that I didn't really consider, but it's an absolutely massive one. Cost too much for supplies, time and materials, multiple preps, no budget. Time I see my kids, because students come unglued. They forget the rules, the policies, lack of budget, 45-minute periods, admin. It's basically all the same reasons that I came up with. And I kind of wanted to talk through those, because when I was in the classroom, I had those same objections, and I did do some things to kind of overcome those, and I want to take a look at what that looks like. So let's get moving here. So one of the first ones that I saw over and over was there's no resources. And when I'm talking about resources, I mean like the content resources. For me, the hardest part about being a science teacher was scouring the internet for great hands-on labs that fit the needs of my own students. So if I just pretend like I'm walking into your classroom, tomorrow, and I ask you to show me your differentiated lab write-ups for teaching plant and animal cells, could you do that? And realistically, could you like pull it out of your binder, show me what it's going to look like and how you're going to prep for that? Because if so, I think you're way ahead of the game. But if not, you were just like me when I was in the classroom. You're scrambling to find what the next great activity is going to be. And just in time to teach it, several days right before the students see it. This is really how Kesler Science was born. I was sick of always feeling behind, and I knew that if I created killer resources that worked in my own classroom, that they could work in nearly every other classroom as well. What about no funds? I think this is a legitimate concern. I got this funny story. When I became a teacher, I thought that they were just going to give me a budget because I came from the corporate environment. I thought they were just going to like, hey, Mr. Kesler, here's your budget each year. Spend it wisely. Yeah, that didn't really happen that way. I was never given a budget of any kind. Now, sometimes there would be some leftover money, that had to be spent by 1 o'clock that afternoon. but I could never come up with something that I needed on the fly like that. It's like, we got to spend this money by today or we lose it. Talk about an epic waste of money. The buck doesn't have to stop with your administration, though. My wife was a third grade teacher in the same district that I was, and we'd have these conversations at night about parent participation. Here she was having these parents bring stuff to class all the time, and here I was only talking to parents when they were upset about something. Parents don't love their kids any less when they go to middle school. Well, that's not entirely true. That some people may love their kids less, but anyway, that's not my point. Use parents for resources. It never hurts to ask them. And worst they can do is just not respond or tell you no. Another thing that I did and had a lot of success with was used to donors choose. It's an option to raise funds, to buy resources. I had several projects funded through them, and always had a good experience with them. We funded some Chromebooks, we funded some iPads, I funded some digital cameras back when I was in the classroom. I had a really good experience with that. So one of the other things I saw in your responses that I had the same objection was that students can't handle the labs. And I hear this one all the time, and I'm going to get real for just a second, and I'm going to suggest that maybe, just possibly, that could be a classroom management issue rather than a student issue. It was in my case, and it wasn't until I set up a space that was specific for students that couldn't handle themselves, where an alternative assignment was sitting and waiting for them to do, that if they couldn't handle themselves, they just got moved out of the lab. I didn't punish all the other kids for one or two kids not being able to handle it. I removed them from the situation. You're going to go do your alternative assignment. It's already been done and set up by me. And the other kids are going to do what we're supposed to do. Space. There's some labs where, space is necessary for safety reasons. But in most instances, kids are pretty adaptable. My first class was a non-traditional science room. It didn't have any counters. It didn't have any working water. The lab tables looked like they were from the 60s. There wasn't a matching chair in the room. We made it work, though. Sometimes I had kids out in the hallway doing a lab. Sometimes they were on the floor. Many times they were on the floor. My point is, let's not, make that an excuse for not doing labs. And the last one that I kind of came up with was time. Time is a premium in the classroom. And when you start adding in all these other things like no lessons and no money, etc., what you'll find is that time floats away and you're always chasing it. Without time, you run into all kinds of issues, and it even flows into your personal life too. You're stressed out or anxious all the time. Your spouse is sick of hearing you talk about it all the time. You know exactly what I'm talking about, especially this time of the year, late April and May. I know exactly how you guys are feeling right now. The Inquiry Labs project has been on my mind for many years, and I believe it helps solve many of the problems we just discussed. Before developing any of the labs, I did a ton of research on what teachers were looking for in a lab. You may have even participated in some of those surveys through the Facebook, through my email. I appreciate you guys. The point of my research was to be able to develop a framework for teachers and students that was easy to understand and it was repeatable. When students are doing a lab, I wanted them focused on what they are doing rather than how to do it. The labs have been created, peer-reviewed, edited by classroom teachers from all over the country. What a novel idea, right? Classroom teachers. There's just something to be said about a lesson that's been created by someone who actually knows what it's like to be in the middle school classroom. I'm going to cough for 1 second here. Hang on. All right, sorry about that, guys. I had the worst cold last week, and finally went and got a steroid shot, and I'm on the mend now, but there's still that lingering cough. But anyway, so they've been reviewed by teachers, and teachers make the best lessons. That's just, at the end of the day, that's it. So these are the non-negotiables that I came up with when we wanted to start creating these labs. They needed to be easy to follow for teachers and students. They needed to be differentiated for all learners. They needed to focus on student-centered learning. They needed to include the CER model as a conclusion. And one of my favorite parts, they needed to be editable so that you can take a lab and based on how we've created it, and modify it if necessary to fit the needs of your students. Now I can hear the collective wahoo screaming across the internet right now, because this one's huge, guys. Editable is going to allow you to do so much more with these particular labs. So let's dig in and take a look at some of the labs so you can get a better understanding on what's out there. So we're going to go through like just some sample labs. I'm going to show you what the parts are, why we included it the way we did, what it's going to look like to the student, what it's going to look like to the teacher. And I think it's just going to give you a better overview on what's out there. So you'll see some text here about the differentiated learning. And we are going to dig into that a little bit deeper in just a second, but I just wanted to show you. This is just in the first resource page. So when you open up these labs the first time, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see how the labs are differentiated. And then you're going to also see some information and links about the CER model and how to use it in your classroom if you're not already doing that. The next page in all of the labs is going to be a teacher's direction page or pages, and is broken down into several different sections. The first section is going to give some general information about the grouping or suggested grouping and timing of the lab. Keep in mind, these are just guidelines. You can do whatever you want. The next section is going to show the standards that the lab addresses. We're going to be listing the TEKS here, which are Texas standards, and the NGSS standards in each of the labs. A lot of times they overlap each other. And I'm guessing between those two sets of standards that we're going to hit about 95% of the content being taught in middle school science across the country. The standards will also be listed in the item description, so you could see if that's going to meet your needs even before, downloading the lab. The teacher notes are just a brief overview of the lab. It's as simple as that. The materials list is going to give you an idea of what materials you'll need for each group. We were very conscious when creating the labs. Now, some of the labs do require traditional science equipment like, beakers and test tubes and microscopes occasionally. But many of the labs use perishable items that could easily be picked up by Walmart or Target, donated to your class by parents, or you may even have them in your lab closets as we speak. The material listings will also be available prior to even purchase, so you can see what you'll need before buying any of the labs. And then lastly, there's just a quick section on additional resources. In this particular one, I have an additional 5E lesson that I've created, and then there's a link out to a brain pop visualization. So the next part is we're going to get into the student page. This is the first page that the student has. And like I mentioned in the non-negotiables, I really wanted to build a framework so that each lab looks familiar when a student sees it. It's going to have a place for their name and period, obviously, and it's going to have icons to denote which of the 3 differentiated labs they're doing. The essential question is going to be the question that guides the lab, and is probably something I would discuss as a class, because you know how these go. The kids, they see it, they're going to go to the first thing they're supposed to do, and they're going to do it. So I would go through that as a class. Why are we even doing this, guys? And talk about it. And I would do the same with the background too, and the phenomenon. Each lab is going to include this information for reference, and it also may be needed to help guide students to their answers. Lastly, there's going to be a materials list, and this is used for the group. So thinking along that, I'm just thinking about this out loud right now, but this page, it could be just a class set, right? You could just have it, laminate it, make a class set, and then when they're the papers that they're writing on, then you can make copies of those, so you don't have to waste copies. But generally speaking, this first page is going to be a class set. It's just reference materials and so forth. All right. One of my favorite parts of the labs is that they've all been differentiated for you. Each lab has 3 different variations. So first, I'm going to go through these individually. So first, you're going to have a dependent inquiry lab. That's what we've called it. It's called the dependent inquiry lab. And these are great for most of your on-level students. I would just say most students, these are going to be great, middle of the road as far as rigor is concerned, just great for everyone. The level is written with a combination of procedural instructions and inquiry questions. They're moderately student-centered with guided inquiry questions throughout. And then the CER and the reflection questions at the end of the lab are going to be open-ended. So moderate teacher involvement with this. You're going to be expected to be there facilitating the lab, but it is student-centered. The next is what we're calling the modified inquiry labs. And you can see these kind of cute little logos that we chose, and we've put it at the top of each of the pages to note, you know, see, I'm going to back up here. So this is the dependent one. It's got the two kids. Then maybe you have a question. And then this one is like, okay, this needs a little more teacher help. And let me talk about the modified ones. So the modified labs are for students who need some additional help. Maybe they perform below grade level, or maybe they have an IEP and need some modifications. This level provides the most structured lab experience. It's going to guide them exactly what to do. The lessons may also eliminate some of the parts. For example, if you're going and collecting, 5 samples, maybe the modified lab is only collecting 3 samples or only doing 3 portions. They're just taking out some of the redundancy. And then the questions throughout and in the CER and the reflections often include sentence stems or multiple choice options. So you can see this is a conclusion or CER statement at the end of the lab, and we've got some sentence stems for them to kind of help guide their understanding. The independent inquiry labs are excuse me, the most student-centered experience. It could be used with advanced students or in situations where you want students creating their own labs. Now, I know NGSS requires this in many of their standards, and these would fit great into that situation. There are suggestions made for students to get started, but most of the decisions are student-centered. The students are going to be responsible for most aspects of the lab and have the least amount of guidance. Limited teacher knowledge. So I provided the background, the same essential question, but down there on the bottom left there, it says the directions. It tells them create a lab that demonstrates blah, blah, blah. Here's some sample data. Sometimes we give this, sometimes we don't. And notice none of the axes are labeled. The tables aren't labeled. Like, you're going to go create your own lab. And this is going to be great for those NGSS classrooms that are doing that already. The CER and reflections are also open-ended at the end. We did not eliminate those or have them write their own. We just, because I really feel that there's I just feel strongly about reflections, and I really wanted to make sure that we were ensuring that they learned the correct things throughout the lab or throughout their investigations. So with all the labs, I really wanted to focus, that focus to be on hands-on science. Science is experienced by doing, and with the inquiry labs, students will be doing the science. So here are just a few of the sample labs, or just kind of pieces and portions that I pulled out that you can kind of take a look at. These have been released already. Actually, the Potential Connect one hasn't been released yet, but you can see they're collecting data, they're making observations, they're organizing information, they're analyzing that information to form conclusions. And this is the thing that's missing from so many science classrooms across the country. Along the way, during their lab experiments, they're also being checked for understanding, and they're responding to questions that make them think about the science beyond the lab. We've added these gray boxes in, we call them check for understanding boxes, throughout most of the labs. And it's kind of just, it's like a little reflection point as they're progressing through the lab. So thinking back to the non-negotiables, one of the things I mentioned in the CE is that the CER model had to be included or needed to be included. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the CER model because I've provided some links to that, and you can kind of investigate that on your own. Bosman Science has a great video on YouTube all about the CER model. But in a nutshell, it's a way for students to make a claim about their discoveries using the evidence from the lab along with the scientific principles. And again, that link to the video, if you're not already using the CER model, is going to be included in every lab, so you can kind of freshen up on what that is and start applying that. Once the kids know how to write a CER statement, you're going to see some big changes, I think. So following the CER model are 3 reflection questions that allow students to reflect back on the lab and also extend their knowledge into real world scenarios. I'm a huge fan of reflection, and if that step's missing, then the lab is basically pointless in my opinion. So that's really the overall general format for each of the labs. I've kind of piecemealed a couple labs together, but if you were to take any one of the labs that we have to offer, they're going to all look and feel the exact same way. So I just want to quickly talk about the Inquiry Labs bundle, and then I'm going to open it wide open for questions and just have some one-on-one time, or I guess one on many. But you guys are many to one. How about that? So let's take a look at that Inquiry Labs bundle. I think the benefits are obvious, but if you fell asleep for the last 20 minutes or so, then this is kind of just a quick reminder. You're going to save tons of time, looking for great labs that'll have already been written for you. It doesn't mean you have to use them exactly as they are, because remember, they're all editable. But having a completed source to extend or expand from is going to really improve on your teaching. And we all know that when students get to do science, actually get their hands on science, their engagement increases. And when engagement increases, guess what's right behind? That's retention. And that's what we're looking for, right? We're trying to get them to understand and retain this knowledge. And maybe best of all, these labs are going to meet the needs of all your students because they've been differentiated. Now, as a quick little bonus, it is all about the students, but let's be fair here. It is about you too. As a bonus, your administrator is going to be highly impressed when she walks in your classroom and you can show her that true differentiation is happening with ease. You've got one set creating their own labs. You got one set working independently on a self-guided lab, and then you've got another set who are using some additional help through modifications that have already been provided with the lab. It's gonna be an A+ on your evaluation for sure in that category. The growing bundle really makes science come alive. I think you can kind of see that by looking at it. I'm really proud of this product. We've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours working through this and the processes and what these labs are going to look like and developing them. And I'm just super, super proud of the product. So I want to just take a quick look at the included topics that come with the lab. You're going to see that all the typical middle school units are going to be included in this labs bundle, just like in my 5E labs and my station labs. You can buy them all together or just the ones you need. And the topic's going to align again with the TEKS and the NGSS standards for middle school. We've got chemistry, earth science, force and motion, energy, body systems, ecosystems, structure of life, space, and weather. So let's talk about what the growing bundle is going to look like over the next couple of months and what the offer is on the table for getting your hands on these now. What do you get? You get 100 different science topics, and that includes basically, it's really 300 labs, right? Because they're modified. So really each lab has 3 labs. So 100 different topics. They're all going to be aligned with the TEKS and the NGSS topics. There are 3 levels of differentiation, which I've been over and over. And then this is a growing bundle. Now, most of you guys already know what that is, but let me talk about what a growing bundle means. Basically, it means that topics are to continue to be added to the bundle until we get to our stated 100 topics. In fact, this one is probably going to go over 100 because some of the standards may need more than one lab. Right now, I've released 18 labs. They are finished, ready to download, ready to go. The benefit is that you get to buy it at one price, and as the products are added, you don't have to pay for them again. So, well, Chris, what do you mean? You're just selling me 18 labs, but you're telling me you're going to make 100? When are you going to have the rest out? The rest are slated to come out by back to school. I'm going to commit to have the bulk, if not all, done by that back to school timeframe. I've got another 20 sitting in the hopper, ready to be edited. So we're almost, halfway there, a couple of weeks from now. And then once summer hits, we're going to really be able to spend some extra time getting these things ready to go. So that's the time frame. You're probably not going to need this entire bundle at the beginning of, at the beginning of May. We're at the end of the school year. But the benefit is, because there's only 18 out right now, you're going to get an introductory price. So let me show you what that looks like. So if you were to buy them all individually, they're $7 a piece. It's going to be at a minimum 100. That's a minimum. That would be $700. I realize that that is a huge chunk of change, which is always why I do the bundle pricing. So the normal bundle pricing is going to be $349. That's basically almost 50% off purchasing them all individually. So that alone is a pretty good deal. But because I'm kind of trying to get this out there and get it talked about, I'm releasing the Inquiry Labs bundle today through May 4th, and you can get that for $249. There's a couple of ways you can purchase that too. It doesn't have to be paid all at once. So until May 4th at midnight, the Labs bundle is $249. So you get all of that. It's one time you make the payment or the payments, and then you get every additional lab as they get added into the bundle. So it's a pretty awesome deal. So let's take a look at it. Two ways you can purchase it. Most of you guys are familiar with Teachers Pay Teachers. I made it very simple for you. You go to Teachers Pay Teachers, you find the bundle, it's $249. You don't need a coupon code or anything. That's just what it is. It's $249 on Friday night, May 4th at midnight. I'll raise it back to $349. You can get there directly by going to tptinquirylabs.com. I just set up a URL redirect so that that takes you right there. There's another way that you can do that. And if you've already got lessons on my dashboard, on my website, you can buy them there. There's really no difference. Just the way they're, I guess, held there. So you have access to, with a login, you have access to all your labs. You can download them when you want. And you can buy that for the same price, $249. Or I've done something that I've done with the 5E lessons and the Station Lab. I've made it available as a payment plan. Sorry, guys, another coughing episode. So I've made it available as a payment plan. 10 months, $29, comes out to a total of $299. Because you're doing the payment plan, there's a slight break for buying it all at once. You would, if you make the payment tonight, you would have access to all the labs that are out there, and any labs going forward. You'd make a monthly payment on the same day of the month. It would be taken automatically off your credit card through your account. And once you're done with the payments, you'll still have access to all the labs going forward, just like you would buy it with a full, the full one-time payment. The only benefit is I understand that $249 is a lot of money to ask someone to spend on something. So I just made it easier for you to take that route instead if you wanted to go that way. And in order to get there, you just go to KeslerInquiryLabs.com. So tptinquirylabs.com, KeslerInquiryLabs.com, those will take you to the correct spots. I'm going to open it up for questions, and I'm going to just basically stay here until I'm done answering every single question. I really appreciate you guys coming to check this out. I know it was different than past webinars, but I hopefully, even if you weren't to buy the labs, right? I think that you could take the components that we talked about tonight, create your own labs, and you would have something solid. I just, just speaking from personal experience, hundreds of hours are involved in creating these things, and I just think it's just a no-brainer to go out and buy them and get on with your life. But that's just me. So let's go ahead and go through the questions, and I'm going to cough one more time, and then I'll come back and start answering questions. Give me 1 second. Okay, cool. So I'm just kind of filtering through them as I go. Nice meeting you at NST in Atlanta as well. So how do you download the new files? So the new, that's a good question. So if you already have the 5E lessons or the station labs, those are different product lines, right? So I committed to creating all those 5E lessons. We finished that last fall. Those are a completed bundle. The station labs were completed the year before that. Those are a completed bundle. This is a brand new product line. And in order to download well, first you'd have to purchase this, but once you download the newest files, there's a couple of ways, depending on where you purchase it. If you bought them from TPT, you just log into your TPT account, go to My Purchases, and just re-download the files. If you were to purchase them on my site, you just simply log into the website, and they're just there, sitting there, waiting for you. So those are the ones that are. That's a good question. What are the 18 labs ready now? The 18 labs ready now kind of span across multiple units. If you go to that tptinquirylabs.com, I have in that list there, I've got completed next to the ones that are completed. You know, I know there's, here, I've got some, I'll just start calling them off. Layers of the earth, plate tectonics, topo maps, density, natural selection, circulatory system, endocrine, respiratory. We've got tides, seasons, the sun, some advantages and disadvantages of energy, structure of life, so forth and so forth. So yes, so those are the ones that are ready now, but you can see that at tptinquirylabs.com. Actually, any one of those websites shows you what that is. All right. Would you purchase a bundle in conjunction with your 5E lesson plans? And if so, how would you incorporate both into a unit for a full experience? That's a fantastic question. And the answer is yes. So it is two separate purchases. So the 5E lesson plans, remember, goes through all the 5Es. So where do these labs fit within that 5E model? I'll tell you that in 1 sec. For me, they fit really in two places. They can fit in that 4th E, the elaboration phase. So you've already done some investigating, you've already done maybe some direct teaching, and then you're on to the lab and you're ready to go that route. Or you could do it in the exploration phase, but I would still do the station lab first. So you do your engagement, you do the station lab, and then you do the one of these inquiry labs. And the reason you would do it that way is because you really want students to have some content knowledge coming into these labs. Some of these labs assume that there is some knowledge there, and you'll be able to tell once you read through those where your students are in that process. Some they're going to be uncovering new knowledge in it, but some they're going to have to to come to apply some of that knowledge that they've learned. So those are kind of two of the places that I would use it, after the station labs, and then like some kind of before the final assessment near toward the end. Okay, if bought through TPT, can I access the labs via the Kesler Science website? Yes. So that's what I would do is do it this way. So if you buy them on TPT, shoot me an email with your receipt, chris@kesslerscience.com, and just say, hey, I bought them on TP, but I really want to access them on your site. This is the email I'd like to use for your site. And I can set you up with an account there as well. So that's definitely one easy way. Okay, we often find the biggest issue with science labs is the time element. 50-minute bell work, lab closure, there's never enough time. How do these run time-wise? So all of us that worked on creating these labs are teachers and are very aware of generally that 40 to 50-minute class period. Some of the labs fit perfectly into that. Some of the labs are really like 2-day labs where there's some prep someday and there's some wait time, and then you come back and analyze the next day. So I can think of one offhand that's actually maybe a little bit even longer than that, but generally speaking, these are meant to be done in like one or 2 days. Don't have any questions, but I wanted to say thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. Is there a list of all topics planned? Yes. So either one of those URLs at the bottom has the list of all the topics that are planned. Have you considered doing an elementary level lab bundle, such as grades 3 through 5? At this point, the answer to that is no. I'll never say never, but that at this point, the answer is really that's where my expertise is, and there's only so much time that I have, and that's kind of really no other way to answer it. Give me 1 second. Okay, great question. 5 teachers at a middle school, pricing for multiple licenses, or if I buy them, can I share them with colleagues? So here's the deal. Each teacher needs their own license. I am more than willing to work with schools to set that up. You can email me at chris@kesslerscience.com. Tell me the situation, what you're looking for, the licenses. I'll send you and your school back a whole purchase order. I've got a whole file that talks about the purchase order process. Great. If we can get the school to pay for it, that's even better, right? But every teacher does need their own license, and I really priced it that way too. It cost, this is a full-time job for me. This is my livelihood, and if I were to give a lab bundle to a whole district or something, and everyone shared it, then my dog wouldn't get fed, and that's not good. So already have your station labs and IMBs. I think this is a great addition. Yeah, so I think I answered that one. Okay, so how much will each content bundle cost? So in the TPT URL at the bottom, if you go out to there, you can click on the headers of each one of those, and you can see how much each unit, like for example, structure of life, she says, you can see how much each unit costs. So it's really dependent on how many labs there are. Like structure of life has an average amount of labs. I can't remember what the price is, but like some of the other ones, like weather, it's cheaper because there's only like 5 or 6 labs. Okay, are these labs within the 5e bundle? No, the station labs are included in the 5e bundle. These are a separate new purchase. Okay, what if I want specific topics only, not all the topics? There's a way to create a special bundle. At this time, I do not have, and it's just a limitation of time and logistics and resources. I don't have a way to create a special bundle, unfortunately. That's just the way it is. They all can be purchased individually, or they can also be purchased, by unit. So for example, if you just taught life science, whether you can buy structure of life, ecosystems, and body systems, for example, that would give you all the life science one I have. Okay, I think I answered that one. What order? I would say after the station lab. Basically, the question is where would you do this? And I would do it after the station lab, maybe before the explanation, or maybe even after the explanation. So if you guys are on my website and you're using the little chat box down there, I do see you, and I will get to you when I'm done with the conference call. I'll get to those, but I can't answer both places right now. Okay, is it recommended to download all the bundles from the dashboard or continue using them from the dashboard? I have concerns about relying on the dashboard going forward. How reliable is it? I would absolutely download them as you use them. I would not download them all at once, because I'm constantly, and by constantly, I mean almost every day, uploading new files and typos or a URL broke or something. And so new files are being replaced over and over. So I would download them on a per needed basis. The dashboard is always going to be there. As long as I'm in business, that dashboard will be there, and you can safely rely on that. It's not going anywhere. Will your materials have a district license or just a teacher license? I currently have, it just depends. We can talk district licenses, but currently it is a teacher licenses. But, if your district has 20 or so middle school teachers, let's have that conversation. I can definitely have worked those out before. So should the inquiry lab be used after the baseline information is given? I would say in most cases, the answer is yes. And at a minimum, I think the station lab needs to be completed. Will the inquiry labs line up to be the same topics as a 5E? They're going to be very similar, yes. There are some instances where there were a couple of TEKs and a couple of NGSS that just didn't have the full amount of content that was warranted a full 5E lesson that we still may do. So let's put it this way. If anything, there are going to be more inquiry labs than there are 5E lessons. So how would this work for an AB block schedule? If you have longer class periods, I would say you would just adjust. So if the lab is going to take, an hour, then you'd need to find something for those other 20 minutes. Maybe it's you just keep moving on in the 5E lesson. No different than you would do for any normal 40-minute lab. I've been using your 5E models. Students love them and now anxious to add these to the mix. You rock, all capital letters. No, you rock. You're amazing. Thank you. I like that it's great, suitable for middle school. Cool. I definitely get it. Okay, yeah, you're missing a few of the NGSS standards in your 5E lessons. Any plan to expand the 5E or inquiry to fill in those gaps? Yes and yes. So I know that there are a couple out there that we circumvented for one reason or another, but yes, there are plans to do both. Please do not hold me to the fire and make me do those by the end of the month, but yes, if you've purchased 5E lessons and I make any more 5E lessons, regardless of what the topic is, and you own the bundle, you're getting it free. Any more inquiry labs, you're getting it for free. Yeah, definitely. I'd like to use these labs in a STEAM program for homeschoolers. I'm one of the 2 main teachers in the same classroom full of 12 students. Does this comply in your copyright? Yes, that's not a problem. Do many of these labs require technology? We often run short at my school. Some do, some don't. I would say the majority are, so far what we've put out, I would say like a small handful, less than 4 maybe out of the 18 require any kind of technology. Actually, maybe not even that many. You're having a contest on the Facebook group. Said the winner will be announced Wednesday. Did you mean tomorrow? Yes, Wednesday tomorrow. Thank you so much. Regarding AB, will that be a problem for labs that are meant to take 2 days meeting? Oh, gotcha. So could, yeah, definitely. So there could be, again, these aren't like, these would be exceptions, right? So a lab that required, something to soak in water for 30 minutes or whatever it may be. Yeah, you have to have that built-in wait time. Again, this is the exception, not the rule. I think that's, there's one, whatever. Like I don't even know that we have one of these labs yet, but if you were to grow some kind of plant or something, obviously, then you wouldn't be able to do that in one class period. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'm at the end of my question list, and we're still, gosh, it's only 7:45. So does anyone else want to throw anything out there or have any other comments or questions? I'm all yours. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your hard work. You do the real hard work, and that is work with students at the end of April. That is tough work. I'm well aware of that work. I'll give you a couple more just like quick seconds to kind of throw some last questions out there, but I really appreciate you guys taking time just to learn about. So I guess I have a question for you. How about that? Is this beneficial to you, to helping you decide whether this would be useful? Like, okay, how about, let me ask this. Does coming to this webinar give you a clearer picture on what the inquiry labs look like and how they could be used in your classroom? Okay. You said these are editable, so does that mean they could translate into another language? If you're using that in your classroom, I'm comfortable with that. If you're translating into another language and selling it on tptchina.com or something, that's a whole nother issue. But yes, if you're translating it into Spanish or French or whatever, yes, that's okay. So lots of yeses, absolutely. Are there enough material to support the teacher? I'm not sure on all the content. So I would say that, yeah, so we're talking introductory, middle school science content. Nothing is terribly deep. And I think that if you needed more information, it would be readily available to you. I know there are some new teachers that are coming in, but it would be no different than, this would be no different than you being provided by with some content by your district or your state or your school, and them telling you to learn it. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay, do you have a sample of your breakouts available? I do not have a sample of the breakouts, but I am going to be doing a webinar for those this summer, and that one's going to be hot. I'm going to try to present that for CAS too. So webinars are very helpful. We do have a lot of ESL students. Yeah, cool. Very helpful to make the decision. Cool. Okay, this is interesting. So even college level biology labs are working with CER method now. So I believe it's extremely beneficial to middle school and high school students to get ahead of this and get accustomed to a great way of thinking. Awesome. Are these editable? Yes. Is there a supply list for each? Yes, but only included on it's only included on the individual labs for sale on TPT. That's where the supply list is. I will be working through and creating a master supply list that I'll put out there in my store at some point, but it is not completed yet. Okay, webinar and seeing a sample are both great way to visualize. Adam's escape room work great. Okay, it's not payday yet. How long is this price available? It's available till May 4th. And you're going to be getting emails about it. And, believe me, you're going to hear about it. I'm about to start some Facebook ad campaigns here pretty soon. I will be emailing you several more times throughout the week and next to just kind of make you aware that it's coming up. Sentence stems for CER are great for introducing the concepts. Absolutely. Will the master supply list be included in the bundle? Yes. Once that's completed, I will definitely put that in there. In a crazy twist, I'm not allowed to use anything from TPT in my school. So thank you for providing high products through your website so I can take them to admin for approval. Pretend I didn't get them from TPT. That's so backwards thinking by your admin. However, I'm glad that I can circumvent that just insane rule. That's so stupid. Cool. Is each differentiated lab the same for each level, just written differently? Yes, that's a great question. So at the very beginning, we were going to be writing 3 different. So this answers someone else's question that I skipped over and I forgot to go back to. We were going to be when we initially started these conversations, we were going to be writing 3 different labs based on, where you were with the knowledge. That just doesn't make any sense from a facilitation standpoint. It would be a nightmare. So you got one kid's doing this lab, another kids are using totally different supplies with this lab, and another kid's, that's a nightmare. So the other person asked, can you envision this being done all 3 levels at the same time in your class? And the answer is absolutely. Yes, that's the point. And I encourage you to invite your curriculum specialists and your district of instruction and your principal in to show them that that's happening in your classroom. That's a pat yourself on the back, but students are winning here, right? They're finally getting labs that they're able to do. Think about if you have paraprofessionals in your classroom and you're able to have an already differentiated lab for them to work with her small group of students. And then you could focus on the dependent and the independent inquiry kids could work on their own. I mean, that's that's not some pipe dream classroom anymore. That's real, and that can happen. Okay. Do you think this is the lowest price you'll offer? Do I think? No, I don't think. I know it is the lowest price I'll offer. I promise you, I'll swear on my words right now that the lowest price this will ever be is $249. That includes, when it goes on sale on TPT or whenever. So the real price is $349. TPT will have their sales, and usually my bundles do go on sale. It will never go below $249 ever. So May 4th, that's it. It's not ever going lower than that again. Are these easily left for a sub? I would say no. Are these easily left for a sub to understand if needed? Now, if you have a long-term sub, that's a different story, because the level of ability is assumed to be a little higher there. But no, that's not something I would never leave a lab with the sub. That's like that's one of those days you get out the reading passages or something. I know you're rolling these out. As you have them ready, could you let me know what might be rolled out for use this semester other than the 18 published ones? I don't have my list in front of me of the other ones. I will say that I'm going to be gone the bulk of next week. So not until the second week of May are even the next batch going to come out. So I think that, between that second week of May and the end of May or mid-June, you're probably looking at another maybe 15 to 20, something like that. So I love how the labs are differentiated, are subtle, and marked with icons instead of words like remedial. Kids will figure it out eventually, but the differentiation can take place behind the scenes and not too obvious. Totally agree. And I don't think they'll figure it out, to be honest. I just don't think they will. They don't care enough to figure it out. So anyway, okay, guys. So I think that's about it. I'm trying to think if I can learn anything from you guys that I really want to have answered. Like, what was here's a question for you. This is just a personal question. What was your biggest obstacle coming into this webinar? Like, what were you like, I'm not interested in this. I'm going to listen to what's out there. Like, what's your biggest obstacle to, or what still is your biggest obstacle? What still is your biggest obstacle? Like, there's no way I would ever do these. They don't make any sense in my classroom or whatever. I'd like to, it's dinner time on the West Coast. Yes, it is. Almost 6 o'clock. All right, guys, I'm going to let you run. So thank you so much. And I'll shoot you, I did record this. So I'll shoot you a replay of this in case you want to share it with your friends or whatever. I'm going to send a replay out, and you can maybe share it with a curriculum specialist in your school, and we can talk about purchase orders or what have you. So, okay, guys, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.